this presentation, we are going to look at the Italian conquest of Libya. The Italian or the Italy's conquest of Libya and the takeover of Libya by Italy. Well, this particular concept has been one that tends to generate some level of debate. Some historians don't really acknowledge the Italian conquest of Libya as a colonial success. Why some see it from that angle? Well, when we analyze it properly, you understand why some people tend to bring some level of debate. Well, after the Berlin Conference, or during the Berlin Conference, Italy made case of the Libyan region or Libyan area as one of the places that she has strong influence. Well, this presentation or projection by Italy were supported by the French and the British. With this support, Italy saw some level of approval by other European countries or European powers towards making push to take over the Libyan area. But although there was an assurance by these European nations at the Berlin Conference, the Italians were not fully convinced that the European nations or European powers will fully approve or stay in conformity with them. For this reason, the Italians started making more impact, creating more presence and influence in Libya. They started investing in some areas, in some safe, progressive areas in Libya. For instance, the Italians established a paper production company which was financed by the Bank of Rome. They established some other industries in Libya. Then importantly as well, they as well started purchasing land in Libya with the purpose of using it for farming activities. But there's something we have to understand here. The Libyan region at that period was controlled by some leaders loyal to the Ottoman Empire or loyal to Turkey. Although they had their own independence, but they were in alliance or loyalty to Turkey. Well, the actions and activities of the Italians were not really viewed in a very positive way by Turkey. But something really happened. At the time, the Germans tend to show interest in Libya. And this didn't go down well with Italy. This was because within that period, Italy, Germany, and Austria signed a triple agreement. A triple agreement that which actually is called Triple Alliance. So Italy couldn't understand why Germany should come and start showing interest in a territory that she has interest in. Well, the Turkish influence or the Turkish loyal rulers started selling or stopped selling land to the Italians and started selling land to the Germans. This surely didn't go down well with Italy. Well, the Germany activities in Libya forced Italy to declare military intervention. Italy at first looked for reason or reasons to enable her to justify her occupation. She complained to the Sultan of Turkey that the activities of a group backed by Turkey, the Tripoli branch of the group backed by Turkey, this group was called the Committee of Union and Progress, formed by Young Turks revolution in 1908. Well, not finding the complaint handy enough because of its lack of merit, Italy decided to use another reason. This reason was that Turkey was importing arms into Libya, and this the Italians looked as the immediate excuse for them to attack Libya. Well, she declared war on Libya after giving an ultimatum that was just 24 hours. The attack came even after the Sultan of Ottoman Empire had granted Italy all the concessions they desired or they wanted. The Italians soon captured 5 ports, namely Tripoli Port, Benghazi Port, Dana Port, Kums Port, and Tobruk's Port. They promised the Libyans equality with themselves and promised to obey or to give them free hand in the area of their religious activity. Well, this promise notwithstanding, the Libyans did not really trust the Italians. However, with neither the promises nor the propaganda from the Italians impressed the Libyans. To them, the Italians were infidels. And as at this period, majority of the people in Libya were Muslims. They therefore decided to sink their differences with the Young Turks Committee in order to team up with the Turkish army against the Italians. But I have something I would like you to note here. Before the invasion of Italy, Libya was not united. It wasn't a united political unit, no. There were pockets of problems here and there, with a lot of persons, a lot of interests, a lot of leaders, some Muslim leaders working towards creating territories for themselves. So there was no unity. Most groups were fighting against each other in Libya for political control. But they had to wave aside their differences in order to create a force. Now, this new unity was led or engineered by the Sanusiya Brotherhood. The Sanusiya started canvassing for volunteers into the army, and they led these volunteers in collaboration with the Turkish army. One of such volunteers was a Tripolitanian Berber called Sheikh Suleiman al-Baruni. Several Libyans were also sent to Istanbul to be trained as army officers by the Turkish commanders. The Turkish commanders started training these volunteers because they were not also comfortable with what the Italians did. So they started training these volunteers because already in these volunteers they already have standing army to counter the Italian colonial intentions. Well, the differences of these groups were waved aside, and these volunteers provided a ready-made defensive force for the Turks when the Italians invaded other parts of the country. They met stiff resistance. The number was so large that the Turks opened training depots for them within Libya and even in the Ottoman Empire area. Apart from this local training, the Turkish commander at that period, named Enver Pasha, sent about 365 Libyans to Istanbul, where they were trained as army officers in order for them to command different units in the new formed volunteer force. This local support given to the Turks by the Sanusis not only prolonged the war, but also made it impossible for the Italians to start the process of colonization soon after they captured in 1911. Well, there were pockets of resistance when the colonization started, and this lasted for quite a long time. But some progresses were made by the Italians. That was basically when the Italians started threatening Turkey. The Italians threatened to attack Turkey for supporting the Libyans. But there were also collaboration by other European nations, which also put pressure on Turkey to back out of supporting the Libyan forces. But there's something really I want you to know here, which I think I omitted that part. That with the attack or with the declaration of war in Libya, the Germans surprisingly backed out of their interests. Rather, they supported the Italians towards their activities. Possibly, maybe, the Italians may have engaged diplomatically with the Germans in order to make them to take off or to forego their interest in Libya. So a lot of pressures were put on Turkey because the Italians were losing their soldiers. They lost over 3,380 soldiers and had about 4,000 wounded. This led the Italians to commit a whole lot of war crimes. They even killed a lot of defenseless natives as a means of frustration when they found out that they could not, the war was not going their way. Well, with this pressure on Turkey, the Turkish decided to remove their support for the Libyans, but they needed a soft ground in order to save their face. When this soft ground, under the treaty, they had a secret agreement actually with Italy and some other European countries in order to pull out. Therefore, the Sultan agreed. One of the agreements was that they will pull out, but that their loyal leader, who was the Grand Quadi of Tripoli, will be representing the Sultan in Italy, in Libya, under Italian control. This particular agreement was actually put in place. The Turkish later withdrew, and the withdrawal of the Turkish prepared the stage for the Italians to completely put up control. But it still was not easy for them, because there was still high level of resistance under the supervision of the Sanusiya Brotherhood, led by Said Ahmed al-Sharif and later by Umar Mukhtar. However, neither the Italians nor the Sanusis were able to completely control the country. There were pockets of local resistance by Muslim leaders in various parts of Libya. Some of them took advantage of the Turkish withdrawal and occupied areas that the Turkish armies vacated. They recognized neither the Sanusis nor the Italian authorities. Well, the withdrawal of the Turkish army in 1912 had adverse effect on the Sanusi's resistance. It made the movement of the Italian army very easy, in the sense that the Senussis or the Sanusians were blocked from having supplies from the Turkey or from the Ottoman Empire, making it difficult for them to sustain the resistance. Well, the Sanusi soldiers, as a result, were scattered because their chain of control, their chain of collaboration, their chain of communications were cut off with the pulling out of the Turkish army from the whole conflict. This gave the Italians the opportunity to establish colonial rule in Libya. Well, at a time later, when the First World War started, the whole influence of the Italians in Libya went down. As in 1916, the Sanusi army took advantage of the Italians and the British involvement in the First World War to try to increase their influence. They even attempted making an incursion into Egypt, but they were beaten back or driven back by the British army. This further weakened the Senussis. The British and the Italian took advantage of the weaknesses of the forces under the Senussis' control to sign Treaty of Akrama in 1917. Under the treaty, Italian occupation of the coastal areas was recognized by the Senussis in return for the Italian recognition of their control of the inland area. So you can really see the basis for the debate by some persons or by some historians that what the Italians did in Libya cannot fully be called an occupation or cannot fully be called a colonial structure. Well, if we haven't had this presentation, it is left for you to give your own analysis. We will surely appreciate and acknowledge your comments in the comment section. If you are watching us for the first time, please subscribe to our channel and click on the notification icon so that anytime we present a new content, you will be one of the earliest persons to be notified. We are actually working towards creating an online class where we will give extensive teaching in African history. Maybe within a very short time we will put out the information for those that might be interested in joining our online class. Thanks for still being part of our channel.